Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Sound Bites of Life by Human Life of Washington, coming to you from not where I wanted to be bringing the first episode from. This is not a film studio or even a professional office setting. This is my house. This is a room that's been converted into a makeshift office. This is not a high-quality camera. This is a 10-year-old camera that I'm borrowing. Same approximate thing with the light setup that we've got rigged up in here, and I haven't had a haircut in like 6 weeks. Because we had this plan, this perfect plan for what these episodes were going to look like, and we're not there. And being that coronavirus still exists, we're probably not going to be there for a little while. All the things that we tried to set up, each successive one, coronavirus, gets in the way of all of them. And here we are, doing this in a bedroom with an old camera, because that's just the way that life is sometimes. And you know what? That's okay. And there's actually a very important lesson for us in that. Not just for pro-life, though of course we're going to talk about that here, but for, what it is to get through life in general. Because the thing is, we want things to be perfect. We do, and that's natural. It's especially normal for us to want things to be perfect when we're talking about something like being pro-life. We're standing up for the lives of the innocent. We are trying to save unborn children. We're trying to save the elderly, the sick, the infirm. We're trying to save all, the mothers from the pain of an abortion. We're trying to do all these good things, and we want it to be perfect. Of course we do. Why wouldn't we? But life isn't perfect. Life is messy. So how do we reconcile those? How do we reconcile the desire to be perfect with the reality of life? Well, for that, we can actually turn to a certain sports figure. Now, I know that many of you look at me with my, 300 pounds of muscle that you're seeing here, big linebacker-like physique, and you naturally conclude, wow, I'll bet that Michael played football in high school. You know what? I'll bet he played in college, and he could have gone pro if he hadn't instead gone into the pro-life ministry. But while I'm sure this is going to rock your world, I've never played football, and in fact I have very little interest in the game. Shocking, I know. But though I don't really care for football as a sport one way or the other, I do have great respect for a number of football leaders that I have been made aware of over the years, among them the great coach Vince Lombardi. Now, Vince Lombardi was a tremendously successful coach, both in terms of the wins and in how he taught his players to conduct themselves. And one of the keys to his success was his understanding of the perfect and the attainable. What he said was, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. And that, my friends, I believe is the key. Chase perfection so that we might catch excellence. And that's good advice for us in any state of our lives, but especially in the pro-life movement. Let's take a couple scenarios here. The first scenario is that you're on a committee, or perhaps as part of a small pro-life organization, a pregnancy resource clinic, something to that effect. And you've got a great idea that is going to revolutionize things. But in order to put that great idea into practice, this brilliant, perfect idea that you have, you would need all these resources, the ability to reach out to different members of the community, to connect with other pro-life leaders, to put ads out there, to have money to throw at the problem, to have the technology that you want to have to put together a good production. I think you might start to see where I'm going with this. You want to do all these things to make it perfect, but unfortunately you don't have those resources. In fact, you don't have anywhere close to the resources or the manpower that you would like to pull this off. So what do? Well, if you take a perfectionist route, there are a couple things that you could do. The first is that you could look around and realize, this isn't going to be perfect. In fact, it's not going to be anywhere near perfect, so why bother trying? Let's just give up, not try it, and just throw in the towel. Good game, everyone. See you again next week. And obviously that's not really a great solution. It's not a solution at all. The stakes are high right now. People are in danger. People are dying. We can't just throw in the towel because it's inconvenient or because we don't have the resources that we would like. At the same time, the other extreme of perfectionism isn't any better. You see, with this other string of perfectionism, We look at all the things that we would like to do, all the things that we want to accomplish, and we just say, this has to be perfect, so we're just going to go for it. We're going to try to do all these different things that are part of this big, complex master plan that we have. But the problem is, like I said, we don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the manpower to do that. And so you spread those very limited resources and manpower over too many different objectives, and as a result, you don't achieve all of them. In fact, you don't achieve most of them. And the ones that you do achieve, you don't achieve particularly well. So what we do instead is exactly what Vince Lombardi said. We chase perfection, but know that we're not actually going to get there, and instead focus on catching that excellence, catching what we can actually achieve. So we look at our limited resources, our limited manpower, and we say, okay, we're not going to get the perfect plan that we want, but what can we realistically do? And we take our resources and pool them into those couple things that are the most important to achieve this, because maybe we don't get the big scale thing that we want, but as long as we can do something competently and reasonably, well, that's progress. It looks better to the people on your staff because now you have the confidence of knowing that you've accomplished something. It looks better to the people who are your supporters because now it looks like the support they've given you is actually going to something productive. And it looks better to people who might be seeing this from the other side, or at least seeing this from where they're sitting on the fence, because they think, okay, those people turned out a professional product. They care enough to get this right. This isn't just some slapdash thing thrown together by pro-lifers who are just yelling at people and judging them. This is something that they put together because they care about it and they want to make sure that they do a good job. So across the board, this looks better. It's pretty similar when we get into the interpersonal side of things. So here's the second example. Let's say that you're in a conversation with somebody, and maybe it's a friend or a loved one, maybe it's somebody that you don't actually know, you're a sidewalk counselor kind of situation, and you've just met this person on the fly. That side of things doesn't matter nearly so much as you're interacting with a single person one-on-one, and they have asked you a question that you don't know how to answer. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you are very good at the philosophical side of things with the pro-life movement, and even to an extent, the basic science as it applies to those philosophical arguments, talking about personhood and the humanity of the child, the statistics surrounding the effect that abortion has on women, so you've kind of got that going with understanding the science behind what abortion does to the mothers. But the question that they've asked you is very, very specific. It gets into some branch of medicine that you've never even heard of, and even if you had heard of it, medicine doesn't really stick in your head that well, so you wouldn't really be able to provide this person a coherent answer. It's not your area of expertise. Well, what do? Well, let's start off with taking a couple of the different ways that a perfectionist might look at this. One way is that you just think, well, we've got to answer this, we've got to win this argument in a single conversation, so I'm just going to go out there and trust that I'm going to start talking and I will find the point by the time that I get to the end of it, kind of like what sometimes happens with me when I'm filming, if I'm being honest. But I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to get to the point eventually, and the sheer force of my persuasion and the righteousness of my cause is going to see me through to the other end because I have to win this conversation. I can't settle for anything less than the best. I've just got to go out there and do it. If you do that, congratulations, you have failed. And I say that with all humility because I know that I have done that myself. I've had times where, one specific example with this actually, somebody asked me about the violinist argument, and I learned in the past how to answer the violinist argument, probably from Equal Rights Institute, who have a number of great explanations for that on their website. But it had been long enough since I'd done it that I couldn't remember all the specifics. So I basically just tried to be like, I know that there's an answer to this, and I kind of tried to make it up as I went along, but even if I can't give it to you, then know that we still have the answer, so don't think. All that happened from that was that I came across as being arrogant, as not actually caring about the question that the person had asked me, and about not caring about the person themselves, because it was clear that I didn't respect them enough to give them the good answer that they deserved. I cared more about my own image than I cared about the other person. And even if we attribute a more altruistic motive to my part, okay, I want to save lives, so obviously I want to give this person an answer, I'm feeling that pressure, and so, I choke a little bit, and I make a mistake that I really shouldn't have made, and so I tried to give them the answer, I should have handled it differently. Okay, regardless of whether or not that's understandable on my part, the impression that the other person still got was that I don't care, I don't care about them, I don't care about their perspective, and I don't care enough to give them a good answer. That's not good. I've just hurt not only my own image, but far more importantly, I've hurt the image of the pro-life movement by making it look like we don't care about people. So that's not a good example, that's not a good option there to try to do that type of thing. Another example of how perfectionism can get in the way is that we get so intimidated by the fact that we can't provide this answer that we panic and we either run from the conversation entirely, just finding some way to beg our way out of the conversation, which it's kind of obvious that you're just running away, which again doesn't really make you or the movement look good. And it also implies that we don't have the answer. Just because you don't have the answer, it implies that all of us don't have the answer, so that really is harmful. But the other option there is if you think, okay, I can't answer that question, but I'm confident in these other areas in the pro-life movement, like philosophy, for instance, so I'm going to turn the conversation and be talking about that instead and try to say that, well, your question doesn't really matter because look at the philosophy behind this. No, 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 no. Once again, you have disrespected the other person by acting like their question doesn't matter, like their question isn't relevant. Here's the thing. Just because someone is coming from a place where they don't understand the value of human life in the same way that we understand it, and even though coming from a perspective that, let's be blunt here, is wrong, that doesn't mean that they aren't intelligent people, that their questions don't matter, that we shouldn't be respecting them. We should be respecting them and their intelligence and their questions, because the heart of learning is to recognize that you don't know something and to desire an answer from someone who knows better, or at least who might know better. And so if somebody's coming to us and they're trusting us with their question, we ought to give them a good answer. We owe it to them to give a good answer, and we owe it to the lives of the people that we're trying to save to be providing good answers. So we can't just ignore their question and hop off onto something else because we're uncomfortable with the question. That's not a good answer. That's not a good response, a healthy response on our part. It makes us look bad. And the other side of that too is that even if we perfectly articulate that other point in answer to a question that they didn't ask, they're probably not going to hear that other point particularly well because they're going to be too focused on the fact that we didn't actually answer their question. And that's perfectly reasonable. They asked a question, we didn't answer it. Why would they listen to what else we have to say when clearly we don't care enough to answer them? All of this goes to say that that is not a good option either. So if you're confronted with a situation like that, here's what you do instead of jumping down one of these bad perfectionist rabbit holes. You open with humility. You open with admitting, I don't know exactly how to answer that question because honestly, I don't understand medicine as well as you clearly do. I don't have a background in that, and even when I try to learn about it, it doesn't stick in my head all that well. I understand the basic science, and I understand the philosophy behind it because that's the sort of thing that just clicks with me better. So I will try to give you at least a general answer based on that. I'm going to give you basically my best guess as to how I think someone with more expertise would respond to this, but I want you to know that this is a limited answer and I wish I could provide a better one for you. But even though I can't provide you the better answer, that doesn't mean that there isn't a better answer out there. So if you'd be willing to resume this conversation another time and let me do some research, I will go on some forums, talk to people who I know more about this than I do, and I will come back to you with the answer that I know that you deserve. Or if you'd prefer, I can point you to those people myself, because I know that there's the Charlotte Lozier Institute that is just this big collection of wildly intelligent medical professionals who are looking into the research behind this, so I know that they'd be able to give you a good answer. And I also know that there are probably outfits like Equal Rights Institute or Students for Life or the National Right to Life Committee or Human Life of Washington or one of these groups that might have the answer on hand there. So you could talk to them and see if they could either give the answer directly or point you to someone who can. Would that be all right? Now notice what I've done here. By humbly admitting that I don't have the answer that they want, I have humanized not just myself, but I've humanized the pro-life movement. I've made it clear that we're not out here because we want to be right and we want to judge people. We're out here because we care about the truth and because we care about other people. And we care not just about them in an abstract way, but we care about them enough that we are concerned that this particular person who is asking us this question gets a respectful, clear answer because they deserve a respectful, clear answer. Even if you accomplish nothing else in this conversation, the fact that you have perhaps changed this person's view of the pro-life movement is well worth the effort. But the best part of this is that it probably doesn't stop there, because you've also showed them that even though not every pro-lifer is an expert on every single aspect of the movement, and let's be real here, none of us are going to be experts on every single aspect of the movement, there are other parts of the movement besides us. So this will hopefully incentivize them to go look for those other parts of the pro-life movement, or at very least to be willing to engage with you while you go and look for the other aspects of the pro-life movement that are going to be more helpful to them. And that, again, is a huge victory in and of itself. And finally, you've given them enough of a starting point with kind of the general answer that you provide them, that with their knowledge of the medicine behind it, they might actually be able to fill in the blanks themselves, or at least start to be able to see where the pro-life movement is coming from. So even if they don't change their mind in that conversation, and let's be realistic here, very few people do change their minds in a single conversation, but even if that doesn't happen, they're now on that path. They now have a seed that's been planted for them, where whether with you or with another pro-lifer or just with their own research, they're now going to be more open to the possibility that there actually are not only answers to this particular question, but perhaps answers to all of their questions about the pro-life movement. And so, did you achieve the one-hit knockout victory in the conversation that you would want in a perfect world? No, of course not, because we don't live in a perfect world, and it's unrealistic for us to expect that to happen on a regular basis. But what you have done is won a remarkable victory for the pro-life movement by reaching out to that person as a fellow human being, starting a conversation, humanizing yourself, humanizing the pro-life movement, and hopefully humanizing the people that we're standing up for, or at least planting the seed for all of those things to happen. And that is exactly what is going to let us win. It's exactly what's going to let us win the real fight that actually matters, which is the fight for life. Not the fight for our own reputations, not the fight to win conversations, not the fight to master the argument, but the fight to save lives. And not just the lives of the people that we're directly advocating for, but the lives of the people on the other side of the conversation. The lives of the people who are trying to do good, because they're good people and they care about people. And the only reason that they're opposed to us is simply because they don't understand. And it is our responsibility to reach out to them as well. As to how to do all of that, well, that's what the following videos will be going into greater depth on. We'll be talking about both the technical side of the pro-life movement and the technique, because being able to convey what you're saying in an effective fashion is just as important as knowing what you're actually going to say. But all of that is for next time. For now, if you take nothing else out of this video, remember this. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. I'm Michael DeMay for Human Life of Washington, and this is Soundbites of Life. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share with your friends. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment if you have any questions or if you'd like to suggest a future topic. Follow us on Facebook, and be sure to check out our website for training resources, news, and pro-life organizations in Washington State, including pregnancy resource centers, educational organizations, and abortion recovery programs. Doing any shopping online? The forecast of cloudy with a chance of COVID-19 suggests you probably are. Did you know that if you shop through Amazon Smile, you can donate to us at the same time with the purchase of eligible items at no extra cost to you? Simply go to www.smile.amazon.com and search for Human Life of Washington, or save yourself the search and follow our unique link in the description below. If you found this video helpful and want to support the production of Soundbites of Life, please consider donating through our website at www.humanlifewa.org/donate. We depend on your donations to produce life-saving content like this. Every dollar makes a big difference. Special thanks to those of you who already support us, whether financially or otherwise. All links in the description below. We are one powerful voice uniting for life.